Hello, welcome back. Today I'm going to be starting a bit of a bigger project and I'm going to be making a sculpture of a Hydra. So the Hydra is a Greek mythological animal or monster, and it was killed by Hercules as one of his 12 labours. And so it's this big it's a sea serpent, I think, technically, rather than a land animal, although I think it does also have legs. And I mean, it's one of these things that has been described as being very different in different sources when you look at it. Like most sources I think say it has 9 heads, but some differ from that. So they perhaps suggest that when Hercules encountered it, somebody had already cut off some of its heads, and then it had grown back. Obviously, when you cut off one head, 2 more grow back, and so it then ended up with 9 by the time Hercules was then killing it. But anyway, I'm going to do it with 6 heads rather than 9, as I thought originally that it was 6 heads, but I think 6 is a bit of a better number than doing 9, and I'm going to do each head with different characteristics. So I think limiting the numbers to 6 means that I can do a bit more of a variety of heads, whereas if I was doing 9, I think some of them would look rather similar, and I want them to be all sort of their own characteristic in the actual overall sculpture. Some people also depict the Hydra with wings. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that. I think officially, as I said, they're a sea serpent rather than a flying animal. But again, it's all this mythological being, which there's a lot of inaccuracies in how it's been described over the years. Anyway, I'm going to begin to cut up a load of bars and get them in the fire to forge out sort of the basic dragon head, and then we can differentiate the designs as we're going along. I'm going to be making all of the heads out of a piece of 12mm round bar, and I found that the best way and quickest way to cut it up is with a pair of bolt cutters, as it means, you know, if I'm going to be using an angle grinder, there's going to be dust and all sorts of sparks and things flying all over the place, whereas with these I can just literally cut them and that's it, and it's nice and quick. I will come back and just rasp the end with a farrier's rasp, as it does leave a bit of a sort of not a very clean end. So we can just come back, file that, so it's nice and smooth. And I've got to cut 6 bars as I'm doing 6 heads. I've made a mark here at 3/4 of an inch, so we can bring our bars in, and the first thing that we do is make a set down, and that sort of sections off the material for the horns. My plan is obviously to do all of these heads slightly different, so I'm wanting to sometimes come under this mark and sometimes go over this mark, so we can have different lengths for the horns for each head. I'm going to take you through the processes of making the basic shape for the head. So I'm going to forge one completely to finish, so you can get an idea of how I'm making each head, so that I don't have to repeat it every time I'm then making these slight alterations to the facial features to give each one its characteristics. Right, so if you do the up with me kneeling down.
I'm still doing it.
Is it still recording?
Yeah. Go on, instructions.
Planning the next shot. I have two heads sort of blanked out as they are at the moment. I'm forging two so that I can be a bit more productive. So as I'm working on one, I've got the other heating up in the fire, and then obviously we swap. But now, what I like to do is, if you've watched all of my other animal head videos, you'll know that when I'm making an animal head like this, I like to just fill this gap, which we have created by bending around two round bars, or bending around a round bar and closing it up on itself. We create this valley. So I like to fill it just with some weld, literally a stick welder. We can fill it with some weld so we then have nice parallel and flat sides, either side, and now we can then forge out the shape of the head and then begin to put in all of these facial features. Now we've got them welded, we can get them in the fire, and I will bring them up to a forge welding heat and then just tap them together to make sure they are nice and solid in the middle before we then forge out the shape of the face. That's the basic head done. So they're sort of the features that all of the heads are gonna have in some sort of way. This one, I've just put a slight bend, as I'm gonna do this as sort of like an old warrior sort of a head, as I'm gonna cut one of the horns in half, so it's got 1.5 horns, and I'm then gonna come back with a chisel and put a couple of battle scars on it. So this is sort of like the oldie of the group. And then on the other one that I've been making in tandem with this one, I'm going to do that as the young one of the group. And so at the top of the head on this one, we have 2 eyebrows, or 4 eyebrows altogether, 2 on each side. And so on the younger one, I'm going to do 1 or 2 eyebrows, so 1 set of eyebrows. And then I'm going to do the eyes cross-eyed, and then put a tongue coming out of the mouth. And so to get the tongue in the mouth, I've got to drill a hole. But to make sure that I can actually drill a hole in the mouth, I need to come in with a little piece of 4mm round and just create a flat spot in the mouth so I don't snap the drill bit when I'm coming in and drilling the hole. Now that we have these 2 heads done, we can move on to the other 4 and get them all sort of made up, and then the alterations and the differentiations and the characteristics forged in, so we have all of these different faces. I'm going to do this head as another old sort of warrior, and I'm going to take one of his eyes out, so I'm going to put a chisel mark through it, and then sort of speckle his eye a little bit. And then I can do his other eye normal, so just dot a pupil in it. Like the other old warrior, I'm going to put a mark, a scar on his snout. For this head, I'm going to do 3 sets of eyebrows, just to jazz things up so he's a little bit different. Now I can use a piece of 4mm bar to put a flat spot in the mouth, as I'm going to put a tongue inside. These 2 heads are going to be the ones with the tongues in the mouth. So you can see that I've already put one in this head. So I'll show you the process when I'm putting it into this one. And I hope that you can see in the mouth there's a little flat spot in the middle, which is where we hammered in that 4mm bar. And that is so that when we're putting the drill in, it doesn't catch on the side of the mouth. It's got a flat surface to start drilling the hole in. Otherwise, you're just going to be snapping drill bits as you're trying to drill that 3.5mm hole into the face. So I can clamp this in the vise, begin drilling that hole. I'll put some threads in the hole with an M4 tap. Now I've got a piece of 4mm round bar in the vise, so I can cut some threads onto this, and then that can be our tongue, which we screw into the mouth. I'm going to flatten the end a little bit so it's sort of a wedge shape going out, and it's got 2 flat surfaces. Now we just screw it into the mouth. And then I'm just going to put a slight downwards bend into it, just with a pair of tongs. The last little thing to do is put a fork in the very end of the tongue. And I'm just going to use an angle grinder and carefully cut it in. These 2 heads I've roughed out, and these are going to be a pair. You see, this one has a really wide mouth. That's because I'm going to get this one to be biting the other one. So it can be biting its neck. And I'm going to do this one with its eyes closed. So it's sort of like, you know, biting the other one with its eyes closed. And then this one, I'm going to do the pupils off to one side. So he's sort of looking where the other one is biting him. I'll do the pupils for this one, the bottom left of both eyes. So he's sort of looking to the side. To try and create the effect of a closed eye, I'm going to use a curved chisel and cut into the middle of the eye to sort of give the effect of the lids coming together. I think it looks a little bit more like he's asleep, but maybe it works. I don't know. I've made a good start on the Hydra. We've got the 6 heads done. So I hope that you like them, and you can see that I've tried to give each one a personality. You know, I've tried to make each one its own head. And I think that is going to make the sculpture overall a nicer thing to look at, rather than just having 6 identical heads. It gives the piece a bit more characteristics and personality to each separate head. In the next video, I'm going to move on to making the body. I haven't decided how I'm going to do this yet, whether I'm going to do sort of a simple body with 4 legs and a tail, or I'm going to take a more artistic approach to it and do sort of scrolls and make it a bit fancier. I think I may go towards that way. I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet. You'll have to wait and see for the next video. Anyway, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you very soon.